How does it feel to be at the end of this 4-year journey that you've been on?
Feels great. Just feel like I've been born again. I get a chance to restart my life and do some positive things.
Do you think that this verdict will change how the court system is working here in Memphis?
As corrupt as this system is, I doubt it.
The alleged mastermind behind Young Dolph's murder just walked out of court, acquitted, a free man. In this video, we break down how this unexpected, not guilty verdict came about and explore whether CMG and Yo Gotti could still end up facing charges down the line. But here's the twist. This freedom may be more dangerous than a sentence, because sometimes prison walls provide more safety than the streets. The alleged mastermind behind Young Dolph's murder just walked out of court, acquitted, a free man. In this video, we break down how this unexpected not guilty verdict came about and explore whether CMG and Yo Gotti could still end up facing charges down the line. But here's the twist. This freedom may be more dangerous than a sentence because sometimes prison walls provide more safety than the streets.
State of Tennessee versus Hernandez Govan, count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant Hernandez Govan not guilty in count 1 of the indictment. State of Tennessee versus Hernandez Govan, count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant Hernandez Govan not guilty in count 2 of the indictment. Ma'am?
Court's in session.
Ma'am? Ms. Johnson, is this your verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is this your verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to thank you for your service this week. You've done
This trial was never truly about guilt or innocence. Everyone already knew the vibe. The real question was whether the prosecution could prove it, whether they actually had the evidence to lock him away for life. Look at how Young Dolph's murder played out. It wasn't sloppy, it was precise. No phones, no texts, no digital trail anywhere. This was pure old school. Slide through, there's money on his head. That's how it spread. Word of mouth in the streets, no follow-ups, no reports, no checking back in. If someone snatched that bag, they moved alone with zero accountability. That's why investigators had nothing. No calls, no paper, nothing linking Hernandez Govan directly to the hit. The entire case rested only on the words of the shooters themselves. But here's the issue. Once you put convicted killers on the stand, their credibility shatters instantly. Everybody knows the defense will destroy them. And then came Govan himself. Watching him cry on cue was straight out of Hollywood. Fake tears flowing as he locked eyes with the cameras, pushing this image of a caring father of 4. He acted like he'd never touched the game once in his life. The way he delivered it was chilling. So cold, so polished, it almost froze the courtroom. That's the picture he left after walking away with a not guilty verdict, smiling, confident, and free.
I just want to say thank you to my attorneys, Manny, Robert, Haley, Beth, Handel, my private investigators, everybody for helping me. I didn't have the resources to necessarily, cover everything, and Manny still helped me, and he knew I was innocent. Everybody around me knew I was innocent. I just want to say thank you to the jurors for getting this right and getting my life back.
And that's the main thing. What was it like during the trial? At what point did you think, hey, wait a minute, I think I have a chance?
Well, I knew I had a chance from the beginning because I knew in my heart I was innocent. And so, it was times during the trial, of course, you get some frustrations and stuff here and there, but overall, I knew my innocence would prevail.
We've broken down this case in ways even seasoned insiders overlooked. The prosecution tried to paint Hernandez Govan's motive as simple. Either he wanted a payout or believed linking with CMG could open music doors. But that's surface talk. It ignores the deeper weight of this story. For Govan, the ties cut closer. His bond with J Money and D Money wasn't business. It was blood deep. Personal, he treated them like family, neighbors raised together, eating at the same table in their mother's home. That part never hit the courtroom, but it's key. J Money wasn't just a Memphis rapper, he had momentum, working with Chief Keef while his buzz kept growing. He was tight with Young Dolph too, moving as both mentee and trusted right hand until tragedy hit. When J Money died, Dolph stepped fully into that CEO lane. But that decision carried fallout because it meant partnering with people who never rocked with J Money's crew. The tension snapped when Dolph signed Big Unk, the man many linked to D Money's killing, J Money's younger brother. Their mother didn't stay quiet either. She jumped on Facebook and Twitter, blasting Dolph in public. After that, the streets picked sides. The songs, the whispers, the posts. Suddenly, Dolph was being labeled a traitor. That's when Chula Mafia's anger ignited. This wasn't about CMG favors. It wasn't about cash or clout. It was personal. They had their own vendetta, their own unfinished war, and Dolph was dead center. That raw motive never came out in trial, but it's the missing piece that changes everything.
I'm sorry if you already answered, but when you heard those 5 words, you are free to go. Just that reaction.
You want to know how I felt?
Absolutely.
It's hard to explain the feeling of knowing you got your life back. And it's one of the best feelings I ever experienced. And I'm just happy to be free.
How much of a weight is this, lifted off of your shoulders after hearing not guilty, not guilty?
It's a huge weight, I was fighting more so for my son. I have an autistic son, so that's what my fight was mainly for.
It's almost unreal. After 4 long years of drama, loss, and chaos, he still managed to walk out with a not guilty verdict. The streets can't believe it. The city can't believe it. And honestly, neither can we. To really break this down, we tapped in with a courtroom reporter who's been locked in on this case from day one. He lays out the key details that shaped the jury's decision and ultimately opened the door for this shocking acquittal.
The longer that the jury deliberates, the better it is for your client. They're discussing certain things, but this was a very limited amount of information, very limited jury verdict form that they had to consider, essentially 3 charges, all wrapped around the same thing. So it wasn't a lot of complexity there. It was really about, did they believe the state's main witness or did they not believe it? And that's what it came down to.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like in a case like this, there's not that much physical evidence to deal with at all, right?
That's correct.
The state was never alleging that Govan was the man who pulled the trigger.
Right.
So his argument is, why are you believing what?
Correct. The entire case is credibility of what he says, Cornelia says, as opposed to, well, we don't have to say anything as the defense, but do you believe the state's main witness? A young man who has a lot to gain or lose based upon his testimony, and not just this trial, but prior trials, who's facing the same charges, who was actually admitted to be the gunman, the one with the most powerful weapon. And so when you deal with that and then a lack of true evidence, no concrete text messages to show, yes, we got him, or this is the plan, or we're here, nothing, no content.
Inside the courtroom, it came out that Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith, the 2 shooters who took Young Dolph's life, hadn't even spoken with Hernandez Govan for weeks before the hit. And that wasn't sloppy, it was deliberate. No need for back and forth. The deal was already set, $100,000 for Dolph's head. Whoever wanted that money just had to step forward and grab it. But here's the twist that shocked people. After the murder, Johnson and Smith didn't even reach for Govan. Instead, they called Big Juke first. If they hadn't spoken to Govan for months before and barely reached out after, how deep was his role in this? That question hung heavy in court. Prosecutors tried to stress phone logs linking Johnson and Govan, but the defense flipped it quick. Johnson straight up told the jury Govan was his plug, so those calls could have been about dope, not murder. With no texts, no calls, no chatter in the key weeks, or even on the day Dolph was killed, the tie looked shaky at best. Putting Govan on trial with proof the thin felt like a risk. And as the case kept unraveling, whispers grew that maybe the bigger picture wasn't even about him, that others, possibly higher up or closer to the core of the beef, could still face indictments later.
The only thing that I understand that state to have produced to the jury for them to consider were you've got multiple phone calls. And for Mr. Govan to be the admitted dealer of the state's main witness of supplying pills and all those things, that would not be a surprise if you've got multiple contacts, they live in the same neighborhood. You can't just go off of, well, I called this person a ton of times to prove a conspiracy case. That's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, so what happens now then?
Well, I think, as the state somewhat alluded to in their closing argument yesterday, and somewhat in the way of the proof through one of the law enforcement witnesses, are there additional parties who could be complicit in the conspiracy? I don't know if that's the case. We heard Mr. Mims' name mentioned a lot, but he's now deceased. So obviously nothing can come of that. It just, I think they need to take a step back and probably regroup and see if the investigation needs to go anywhere or if it just rests there. They do have at least two of the individuals, the most complicit, the actual shooters, accepting responsibility in one case and being found guilty in the other case.
Yes, do you think this makes it more or less likely that they're going to be able to go after, higher up parties?
Less likely. I mean, you would be putting the state's main witness on now for a third or fourth or fifth trial. And every single time that he goes and gets on the stand, the hope as a defense attorney is his testimony changing. And bit by bit, piece by piece, it's just like he becomes a weathered person at that point. I mean, that's a taxing thing to be on the stand, multiple trials for multiple hours at a time, and have to remember and be consistent with everything.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it was a pretty quick trial. We were to come to this conclusion within just 3 or 4 days.
Right.
Seems like the jury knew kind of what they were going to come to.
Well, I don't know if that's the case that they knew. I mean,
Well,
obviously, from a human perspective,
right.
they're
They decided
told not
quickly.
exactly. I mean, it was one of those things that they probably had to go back into the jury deliberation room and say, do we believe what he said, the state's main witness? Forget what the girlfriend said for the most part. Law enforcement's testimony wasn't really helpful whatsoever. The autopsy, it was what it was. But does this young man's testimony line up? And do we have enough? And what a lot of people fail to remember is that it's not just beyond a reasonable doubt. It is beyond a reasonable doubt for a criminal case. But in our jury instructions, as Judge Johnson Mitchell read to the jury yesterday, it requires a moral certainty. And that level of certainty that you would exercise in your most important affairs, where to put a sick child, a sick parent, where to move, things higher than that, quite frankly. What to do about a parent who's suffering with a deliberate, just a horrible illness or sickness. Those are the levels of certainty that you have to have when convicting a person, because truthfully, you're obviously taking a person's freedom away. And the jury knows the stakes, even though they don't know the potential consequences and aren't told about the punishment options. They know the consequences. You're dealing with the most serious offense of first-degree murder.
This entire trial leaned almost entirely on witness testimony, and that base was shaky from day one. Cornelius Smith, one of the actual shooters, is sitting there battling his own murder charge. Of course, he'll say whatever saves his neck from the blade. His word alone was never going to hold much weight. Then came the detective. Govan's lawyer tore him apart on cross-exam, making him look less like a capable investigator and more like someone stumbling through the case. His credibility shattered right there in front of the jury, and the girlfriend, she testified too. But all she added was that she saw Cornelius Smith link with Govan afterward. She never heard what was said. The only thing she repeated was Smith told her Govan had cash for him. That's paper-thin evidence. Here's the bigger issue. If the state couldn't build a case strong enough to convict Hernandez Govan, How could they ever dream of convicting Yo Gotti? Let's be real, who had the type of money to drop $100,000 on Young Dolph's head? It wasn't Big Jook. He was doing well, but not sitting on that kind of millionaire budget. The only one in that crew with a bankroll that size was Yo Gotti himself, CMG's boss. From my view, Gotti was likely the money source while his brother Big Jook handled the recruiting and setup. But even with that theory floating around, no evidence ever tied Gotti directly to Cornelius Smith, Justin Johnson, or Hernandez Govan. If the case against Big Jook couldn't stick and the one against Govan collapsed, what real chance will prosecutors have at convicting Yo Gotti? None. After the verdict, Govan's lawyer even fired back in court. Go after the real power players, the ones who could actually afford to throw up $100,000. Don't target Govan just because he lacked the resources to fight strong. And truthfully, the jury bought into that angle. They viewed him as the smallest pawn in a bigger game. He wasn't the one holding millions. CMG was. That doubt stayed heavy, and it raised the last question. If prosecutors kept pointing at CMG, Big Jook, and Yo Gotti, why weren't those names sitting in the courtroom as defendants? Why spend all this energy chasing the lowest man on the ladder while the bigger players never faced a stand?
I think you get in bed with dogs, you get fleas, and that should have been done all the way through. If I could find all the holes in the case after 4 years of police investigations, you darn well know they could have. And I frankly think they shaded things, did whatever they had to do politically to make this a case, and they didn't actually go after the real perpetrators.
If I were Hernandez Govan, I wouldn't just pack my bags and leave Memphis. I'd vanish from the entire country altogether. Staying local isn't even an option because the danger surrounding him is far too real. Young Dolph's people and paper route empire have already shown time and time again that their reach stretches wide and their drive to strike back runs deep. Since Dolph's murder, several figures tied directly or indirectly to CMG and the Chula Mafia have lost their lives. This isn't speculation, it's a pattern. Look at the names connected to this very case. CEO Giselle, who actually went to court and tried introducing straight drop to CMG, was killed not long after. Big Jook, Yo Gotti's own brother, and someone considered a major player in the beef, was killed too. And those aren't isolated cases. One by one, people tied into this situation have been taken out, almost like the streets are erasing loose ends. Even the court itself admitted how dangerous things were for Govan. When he was granted bond, it came with strict house arrest conditions, not because they thought he'd skip town, but because his life was under direct threat. The judge openly stated in court that if Govan stepped outside before trial, he could be killed before even seeing the inside of a courtroom. When he later tried requesting work release, the court flat out denied it for the same reason. They knew he was a walking target. Now, with a not guilty verdict, all of those protections are gone. No ankle monitor, no house arrest, no extra watch over him. Just a free man standing in a city where the streets are watching and enemies are waiting. If he stays in Memphis every single day is a gamble. In truth, his life may actually be more at risk now than it ever was locked behind prison walls. That's the harsh reality of the game. Freedom doesn't always equal safety. We don't promote violence, but keeping it real. If Hernandez Govan wants any shot at long-term survival, disappearing might be the only option left. Court may have set him free, but in the streets, free doesn't always mean safe. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next jaw-dropping story.